So hello, everyone. Happy New Year first. You are very welcome to join our first Fireside Talk in 2022. Today, we are very exciting and lucky to have Dr. Sayak Pand to give us the talk. So Dr. Sayak Pand completed his PhD training here in chemistry at Hopkins. He successfully joined EY-Parthenon as a consultant 6 months ago. He will be sharing with us his experience and insight on getting a consultant offer as a PhD student. So this will help us to make great preparation for the upcoming recruiting season for advanced degree holders. So we will have this session for around 1 hour long and have a Q&A session at the end. So now, Sayak, could you please share your screen and start your presentation? Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you, Yuan, for the kind introduction. And first of all, could you guys hear me okay? All right. Yeah, again, thanks for the introduction. And I'm really excited to be back at, although virtually, to be back at Hopkins and share my experience with the current batch of students, and hopefully people can at least people can get benefited from some of my experience. And first of all, I kind of want it to be more interactive. So at any point during the presentation, if you guys have any questions, just kind of unmute yourself and ask. I guess I can just answer the questions right away. So yeah, so my talk will be just transitioning from a PhD to consulting and key considerations and best practices. So I'll just share a little bit about what's the management consulting is, and what I found, or the key things to keep in mind for advanced degree candidates, and what are some of the best practices. And we'll kind of close it out with a question and answer session. I didn't want to put like too long the presentation, and I want to give you guys good enough opportunity to ask any questions you may have with regard to the presentation or not, anything you have with about the case interviews. Okay, so did the slide advance to the next slide?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure there is no, I'm just talking and the slide didn't advance. Yeah, so here's the agenda. I'll just briefly talk about my background, and as I mentioned, overview of management consulting, and key considerations and best practices. Okay, all right. So my background, so as you already mentioned, I'm currently a consultant at the EY-Parthenon Boston office, and so we basically do this at every introduction here at EY-Parthenon, like my life in 3 pictures, and that's pretty much my life in 3. And on top you have like I really like to travel a lot, and recently, not actually recently, like before joining at Parthenon, I visited Chicago, and it's in the Chicago Bean, you can see here. And that's like my family when I visited last time India, where I am from. I'm just a big travel buff, so I just like to travel a lot. And then the third passion for me kind of is I'm a big fan of soccer, so I try to go and visit soccer matches whenever possible. And this is a picture of Barcelona when they came to play in the stadium in Washington DC. I think it was in 2017 or 18. I forgot which year it is, but yeah, that's really like my life in 3 pictures, which I always put in. So the basics. So I'm originally from India, and I completed a PhD from Johns Hopkins University from the chemistry department. And in terms of the passions, I am really big on the science communications, and I was running a website called Chembytes before joining Parthenon. It's because I can run it anymore because of all the time constant and everything, but I still try to write articles for them time to time just to communicate science to the normal audience. I already mentioned soccer, and no surprise, I'm from India, so I'm also a big fan of cricket. So these are kind of my passions. And in terms of the work I'm doing currently, my areas of focus so far has been, mostly in the cell and gene therapy clients, kind of looking at, the how to prioritize the assets. And we also work with some of the services clients in the cell and gene therapy landscape. I also work with a kind of like a biotech and a short project on a pharmaceutical clients. So these are so far my 4 different areas of focus that I got the opportunity to work at Parthenon. Now, moving forward, this is just kind of my timeline. So I completed my integrated bachelor's and master's in chemistry from India, as I mentioned, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, from 2011 to 2016. Then I completed the PhD from 16 to 21 under the guidance of J.D. Topor at the chemistry department, and then I started at 2021 August. So the key takeaway from this slide, what I really want to kind of emphasize on, that I didn't do any kind of industrial internship, or I didn't have even any job experience before transitioning to consulting. So like it is very much possible to transition to consulting from a purely academic background. Like all my summer internships during my undergraduate has been like the universities. I was very much involved in research, and from there I kind of made the transition. So the people who does not have any industrial exposure so far, it's perfectly okay. And all of the firms, they understand that not all the people who come from the advanced degree background would have the opportunity to have an industrial exposure. So that's really the key takeaway from this slide. Now, kind of moving forward, I kind of want to share what really the management consulting is. And on the left hand side, you see the meme I found on Pinterest yesterday, and I guess to some extent it is true, because I was really working in Amtrak kind of couple of days before, while I was traveling from Boston to New York, and I do feel like the guy who is saying what I actually do. So that sometimes do happen, and you would have to work during the travel, but that's also kind of like the fun part of being in the consulting. So but realistically, what people really do is like different companies have kind of their different focus on what are the areas and what are the different types of clients they serve. And at least at EY-Parthenon, we work with the corporate clients and also with the private equity firms to make any critical strategic decisions. So in the corporate strategy side, basically we work with any kind of growth strategies, like from doing market analysis, competitive benchmarking, or customer insights. We also do like kind of optimization of portfolios. Like let's say, in the portfolio you have like 10 company, 10 different, business units. So like, and you have kind of like the funding to prioritize 5 of them. Like, how do you prioritize 5, business units out of the 10? So that's kind of like optimization of portfolio. We do also work with some of the new market opportunities, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the kind of like the growth strategy. But sometimes the growth strategy is, within the existing market, but we also work with, how can you explore new market opportunities by exploring geography, new channels, and all this kind of stuff. We have kind of one section about the transaction strategy, and this is basically about, how uh, we basically guide the clients for the M&A or the divestment strategy through the planning, or like kind of doing the due diligence about, okay, how do you go through the entire separation, or if you have to do integration, both the phases. And the third part at the EY-Parthenon, and mostly other consulting firms also do, is basically restructuring and kind of turnaround strategy. Like let's say, some of the business units are struggling, how, what kind of strategic decisions, and some of them are difficult definitely to make, to kind of turn around that business unit. So that these are like the key different types of strategies. But within the corporate strategy, there could be other options, like, go to market strategy. Like, you already, the clients already know, like, these are the markets they want to go for, and the assets they know already. So how do you actually go in the market? What are the conversations you really need to have with the payers or the providers or the key opinion leaders in the market? So that that's also another example of, corporate strategy type of work we and rest of the other consulting firms also do. Now so now, I kind of want to be as exhaustive as possible, with the what are the different forms they generally hire PhDs. On the top you'd have like the MBB, so called, like you have the McKinsey, Bain, BCG. All of them, they don't hire within a specific practice. They generally hire as a generalist in their firm, although it is not like, I have friends who are at these firms, and they mentioned that most of the times, they get to work on their areas of interest. And if we're coming from a PhD background, most of the times it become either healthcare or the life science specific projects. But generally the MBBs, they hire as a generalist, so to say. Now, there are other generalist firms who hire PhDs in their life sciences wing, like at EY-Parthenon. We do like we work in all different industries, but the PhDs generally hire only in the life science practice. And so I came in as a consultant, only focusing on the life science practice. Now, LEK is another, great firm. They also hire in the life science practice, and they all actually have a dedicated role, such as life sciences specialist for, for the PhDs coming into there. There are other firms such as, Guidehouse, which is like formerly Navigant. So they have different types of practices, and they hire PhDs in the life science. GS is another firm which kind of hired in the life science. And then other two firms are Simon Kucher and Kaiser Associates. I think both of these firms have other practices, but they exclusively hire PhDs as a life science specialist, life science consultant, or within the just life science wing as a consultant.
Sayak, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Did you say that you mostly work in the life science, and
Yeah.
like at the MBBs, they work more in like different projects, like different areas?
So yeah, so if you get into MBBs, you will have the opportunity to work in different industries, be it let's say life science, or let's say TMT, like technology media, or if you want to work in retail industry, you want to work in education industry or government. So you will have the opportunity to work in different industries, but I'm pretty sure they also offer you, like, whether you, if you really want to work in life science, they will also offer you that in the MBBs. So you get that opportunity as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and at EY, you more work only in life science. Is that correct?
Sorry, what?
You personally, you work more only in life science right now?
Yeah. I only work with the life sciences clients.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So there are these other type of firms which are like exclusively life science focused firms, like like Clearview, Putnam, like all these types of firms, and so within these firms there would be kind of like a differentiation as well. The type of projects they do, like Clearview, Putnam, they really value PhDs. From my talk with like my colleagues who are also preparing for the interviews with me. So and they work on like one typical case will be like indication prioritization, which is basically they have one asset in the drug which they can deploy for, let's say, two different diseases, which one disease they would prefer. That kind of one of the type of work. And that you'd see across like Clearview, Putnam, Trinity, Clarion, all of these. And some of the firms, like I know for sure, like Health Advances, they have big focus on the medtech sector, and that's they have like a huge focus on the medtech sector, but they also have like other clients as well. And yeah, that's pretty much the different types of the forms you see during your which you could consider applying. Okay, now I would just like to hit a pause here because I know that I'm talking so long. So does anyone have any question at this slide?
Hi, Sayak.
Yeah.
Good to see you after a long time.
Yeah.
One of the things I was, and congratulations, sounds like you're doing really well. One of the questions I was kind of curious about is, let's say you start in life sciences and then you want to switch over to be a generalist, or a generalist to a life scientist. How would your pathways differ, as well as like your possible opportunities going forward? And let's say even if you wanted to switch firms, if you start as a life science, could you then go somewhere else as a generalist, or vice versa?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely possible. So from my experience so far, and also just talking with the manager level people, like generally when you become manager and senior managers, which are like 2 or kind of like 4 years after PhDs, all the generalist firms, they would also want you to specialize. Like at the consultant level, you might work on different industries as generalist, but when you become a manager and senior manager, you kind of have to specialize in one industry. So that happens across all the like the generalist firms as well. And coming to your question, definitely, if you start as a generalist in one firm, then you could definitely go to, let's say, life science specific firms, kind of switch firms and go there. And the other ways, I think, is also possible. I haven't seen too many examples like where people started in the life sciences industry and then kind of moved to a like a generalist uh, form. Like let's say, if you start at let's say Parthenon or really in the life sciences wing, then 1 year after you kind of switch over to MBB. It's definitely possible. I have seen people coming out of MBA did that, and I think it's definitely possible. But it's just I haven't seen too many examples so far. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I guess one last little part. If you were to do a switch, is it kind of like switching labs as if you could almost gain a year and like setting you back to reach your manager position then?
Yeah, that's the conversation you need to have with the recruiter. It's a difficult conversation, but yeah, that's
Right.
the conversation you need to have with the recruiter.
All right. Well, thanks, Sayak.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, like the kind of next part is kind of like, why do you even want to become a consultant? So, if you ask someone, people will give you the usual answers like, I want to explore different sectors and functions as I professionally grow up, which is kind of true. Okay, like it's so cliche, but it is true. Like I mean, you don't realize how true it is until you are actually in the job. Like you work with a different type of clients, like basically different type of client. Working with different type of clients means you interact with a large variety of people, get to know different industries, so that kind of helps you to be more knowledgeable about different parts. And then the second part is like, solve problems have a really wide impact. And I honestly, like, my first project was with a kind of like a startup, and they allocated like 25% of their top line revenue to, get our service. That's like, you also feel that kind of like extra motivation, like, okay, I really have to do well for the client, because they are paying so much of the revenue for us. So that's, it's a huge, like motivation, and you start to see this kind of wide impact. And then the other ones are like, like work with high level executives, and the prestige is also up there. But apart from this, there are other reasons which personally resonated with me. First one was like, it was a little bit refreshing after spending like, like 5 years in PhD, and then also 5 years before that in kind of like the undergrad and master. So I just got to work in a diverse set of teams, and the breadth of projects was really, like refreshing to me. Like in PhD, you really have one problem. You are, in chemistry, I was just trying to maybe optimize one particular reaction. I was trying to make one particular material. So that was like kind of going more depth, and it was very refreshing for me. And then the second part was, like just structured thinking, and you will have to learn every day or whenever you are here. Like, either you are learning how to build a model every day, like you are learning lots of new nuances about the industry. So these are those stuffs which is kind of like more common from the PhDs that I find. So ideally, whenever, I put out like figure out your why, because each and every firm where you go, they will ask you this question: why do you even want to become a consultant? And having a personalized story is really helpful. Like, for example, for me, I was developing peptide-based materials for kind of like, electronic applications, like trying to make transistors. And during my first and second year of PhD, I was always thinking, okay, is this ever gonna be marketed? Like, is this Like, do I ever really see this product in the market? So that kind of questions, and then it made me more interested into the business aspects of any kind of technology. So that was my personal story, how I really got to know about consulting, how, and that's, I think, is really important when you answer these questions in the interviews, like figure out your why, like just have a personalized story, and which makes it, the interviewers feel more connected with you then. Yeah, so does anyone have kind of, any questions on this slide? All right.
Yeah. Hi, Sayak.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you maybe briefly share your personalized story, like for this question?
Yeah. So, but as I mentioned, my story was, and I really told them, like, I was looking, working in this, bioelectronic peptides with which, you could transport electricity. But during my work, I figured out it's kind of long way from the commercialization. And I really wanted to have an impact in a shorter time frame and more direct impact. Like in the research, you'll have more long-term impact. Maybe it would be in the market in 50 years, but I'll be old by then. So I didn't want to be that person. So that was really my personal story. I want to have impact in a shorter time frame and more direct impact. That kind of drew me to consulting from the technical background. But also the second point was, like when I started talking with the current consultants, just the idea of the teamwork, like which I think sometimes could be missing to some extent during the PhDs, because you are just focused on the lab and just doing kind of your own work. Maybe you're working with one more graduate student or one undergrad. And if for a postdoc, maybe working with, like 2 grad students or something. But, I was involved with the consulting club, and right. And also I did I was working with other, people to work on the science communication. So while I was working with them, I really liked the teamwork aspect. And that's also drew me a lot towards the consulting, where you kind of work in a team to solve a, really challenging problem. That was really my personal story.
Thank you. I just want to get a feel how personalized it need to be.
Yeah.
Like, thanks.
Okay, so kind of moving forward about, what are the key considerations for advanced degree candidates? Like they really have some of the good skills, but it could be, it could also be like a double-edged sword. Like if you don't, kind of maintain it like properly. Like the first skill which really sets us apart is like the structured thinking. Like whenever you are in the lab, you have this hypothesis driven thought process. Like, okay, I did this experiment, or I ran this simulation and it did not work, so maybe I need to change this to make it work. So that's a very hypothesis driven thought process, which you need almost every day when you are on the job. But at the same time, it's just, at least what happened to me, I know in my PhD, I had sometimes trouble with, maybe I didn't have some of the answers. So I really have to have, all the different factors to know before I can give a final concrete answers. And that really does not happen in the real life job and consulting. Like you have to be comfortable with the ambiguous situations. You may not have, all the different parameters to answer the questions, but you kind of have to be comfortable with the ambiguity and kind of state that, okay, I didn't know, we didn't have this kind of the parameters, but this is our best case estimate. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind. And then the analytical rigor, like we have this data-driven mindset, but whenever you are at a consulting job, you have to do at some point some of the guesstimates. Like you don't have, like kind of going with before, like you don't have all the different numbers of how many products they could sell. Like you have to make that guesstimates before making a strategic decisions, and as a consultant you have to be okay with that. Now the communication, I find that the advanced degree candidates, we present a lot in the conferences, we provide a lot of seminars, we have a very good storytelling ability, but just identifying the right levels of depth is really important. Like just not get lost in the weeds. Like you have like a big chart in the in the slide, but just trying to pick up, okay, these are the key takeaways from the chart, which you really have to convey to the clients. And it's also important for your interview, whenever you are given a chart, identifying the key takeaways from the chart rather than getting lost in the weeds is really important. Like the leadership skills, I think we already have that, but it's just to, different companies have different culture of leadership skills, and honestly, you are just 2 to 3 years out of just being a manager. So just blending that skills, it's I find that it's not really difficult. So it's just something to keep in mind, and the scientific background really helps a lot if you are working in life science specific projects. But yeah, there is I don't think there is any disadvantage of that. So that's I think kind of summary of what do they look for, and how to kind of efficiently manage your skills. So before I move forward, like, does anyone have any question on this one?
Hey, Sayak, I have another question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you're coming from a science background. I mean, what was the level or learning curve to understand what you were describing as models, business models? And how were you able to prepare to make those adjustments? Are you more or less like, understanding the trends or directions, and then you have like the juniors who are like doing the data crunching? Are you the one that's applying like the models, like which model to apply? Or is there like a data bank within the firms where they have models laid out and you kind of pick which model generally fits?
That's a great question. So, like before starting on the job, like I knew like the terms like profit, revenue, break-even point, all these different types of terms. But at least at EY-Parthenon, we had a really good 3.5 weeks of training session with all the incoming MBAs, and during that training session, they gave us a lot of training on how to build an Excel model, and how do you make a good PowerPoint slide, that kind of stuff. So I think, and what I've heard from my friends at other firms, like all the different firms, they would have some sort of trainings, and which will help you to get there with the different types of models. Now, in terms of when you asked about like what the model actually is, so far I just had to build models about revenue forecasting and cost forecasting, which is basically on Excel, and you have to input all the different parameters. Okay, these are the number of stops you could sell, and in different years, this is the price point. What are the levers of to decide how many different types of units you'd sell. What are the different scenarios about whether you could charge more or less for a product. So these are the steps you kind of have to implement, integrate in the Excel, and then have to get to a final answer of okay, this is maybe the revenue forecast in the coming years, and this is maybe the cost forecast in the coming years. So I think that's so far is the level of modeling I had to do. And it's not like, it's, as I mentioned, it's in Excel. Like I don't have to do like so-called like people use for data science, I know, like or SAS, different types of modeling tools used. I never had to use those. And I think in most of the forms, you don't have to use those kind of different types of advanced analytical tools. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sounds good. No quantum chemistry, right?
Yeah. All right. So, when you consider about, how to go for different types of forms. So like what I find that, just you have to, understand, mainly three factors. At least that's what I consider when I look for different forms. Number one was like the industry focus. Like as I mentioned, the generalist forms, you get to work on projects on diverse industries, but at the same time you'll also get to work on in the life science industry. But the LS specific forms, this is the industry I want to work for, and within that you'd have different types of clients, like as I mentioned, medtech, pharma, biotech. You may have to work with some of the providers, like hospital administration, that kind of stuff, or you also have to work with the peers, like different insurance companies. So there are like different types of clients you would get to work with. And I think that's like at least the first part which I kept in mind. And then the second part was like like the future goals. Like definitely you if you want to stay in consulting in the longer term, that's well and good. And but a lot of the people, there is no hiding about it. Like there's a like huge turnover rate in consulting as compared to like other industries. And if you have to think about if you want to go into like corporate strategy, or like if you want to go into like finance, like private equity or venture capital, or if you just want to start your own like startup, like what are the different types of firm, like people from which firms typically could make these types of exits. So that's something I think you may want to keep in mind while looking for firms. And then the last part is culture. In the larger firm, you have the opportunity to relocate internationally, Europe, Australia, or even in Asia. You have offices for the larger firms. And in the smaller firms, some of the smaller firms, they already have offices internationally. But in the smaller firms, you may get like more like, one big office, you have more tight-knit culture, everyone, know everyone kind of stuff. But, sometimes even in the bigger firms, in some of their smaller offices, you get this kind of tight-knit culture as well. So that's also something to keep in mind while identifying, okay, what are the firms you want to go for. Yeah, so does anyone have any kind of question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question regarding exit strategy. So a lot of these seem to be finance related, venture capital related, but do you observe any instances of people going into charitable or non-governmental organizations out of consulting?
Yeah, I mean, I know for sure that people go in there, like, charitable organizations. So I'm just trying to think of any example that I know of. I know one person, I think, who went to, like the Gates Foundation. I know one person who made that exit. So, but there are definitely examples, but who could make. But I think most predominantly exits are in the corporate strategy roles or the finance roles. These are the predominant exits, but the charitable organization exits are not unheard of. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Zach, I guess I have one question. So for the industry focus, you mentioned the life science specific firms. So do those firms specifically look for candidates with very strong life science research background? So for example, if I'm a graduate student major in physics or something, now my research background is not, tightly related to life science. So is that a shortcome, for
Yeah, I know. It's a question I also used to ask a lot, because I come from a chemistry background. I'm like, okay, whether I have the right life sciences background to, but so I got shortlisted for a lot of these life science specific forms. I know, so they definitely shortlist people. So, and I also had like offers from some of the life science specific firms. So I know they also give out the offers as well. But I would say for sure that it helps to have life sciences background. The reason being, sometimes during the interview, like, they will throw some of the terms which, okay, I actually remember it, like during my first interview, this told me a term like immunocompromised. I had no idea what that means. Okay. So I don't think I still have clear idea of what it means, but anyway, so now, I mean, sometimes they tell you those terms and they'll definitely explain it to you if you don't know, but you also have to keep in mind, you only have 30 minutes to solve the case. Now, if they spend a lot of time explaining this term, then that kind of takes away from that 30 minutes. Because they are doing back-to-back interviews, 30 minutes, they have maybe 5 minutes break before the next interview. So they can't really go over 30 minutes. So if you know some of the terms, it is very, very helpful, I think. But yeah, I'm just trying to think if I know someone from, let's say, physics background, went into life science specific firms. I honestly don't know. I know for sure people went to McKinsey, BCG from physics background. I know for sure, but not many life science specific firms that I know of. But definitely from chemistry, material science, bioengineering, it's perfectly okay. Just you need to know some of the basic terms before interviewing with them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, kind of moving forward, it's basically, I think the key thing is to keep in mind is the timeline, like the MBBs, like the McKinsey, BCG. I think Elite also started. I don't know whether they have it this year or not, but I think last year or the year I was recruiting, they had this summer program, Clearview, Putnam, Trinity, Charles River, Clarion, IQVIA. All of these firms have summer programs, and I highly recommend applying for this because they kind of take their first pool of candidates from the summer program. And once they fill out those positions, then they look for other candidates. And so that's why if you can get into the summer programs, it's very useful. Even if you get in 1 or 2 summer programs, that's a good kind of boost up on your resume to get interviews at other firms. Like I did the summer program at Charles River Associates, and I think that kind of boosted up my resume to get the interview at EY-Parthenon. So the summer programs, you generally, this happens around, I think April or May, and you have to apply by February or March for most of the programs, or maybe April in some of the programs, but they generally happen in April, May. And then the first round interviews from the summer program will happen in June, July. And after that, the regular candidates happen in August, September. And so for some of the other firms like, Parthenon, Simon Kucher, Health Advances, I think they don't have a dedicated summer program yet. And they just recruit around end of summer / early fall for bulk of the candidates. And I think GS, Guidehouse, then Kaiser, Blue Matter, Seniors, they kind of do like rolling basis or all year around. There's also another firm called Triangle Insights Group. I just remember. Yeah, they also kind of do like all year around. You kind of have to go, through their website and find a position and apply. So that's, but again, I know that sometimes LEK, Clearview, they kind of open up applications in spring. So just, yeah, you just have to be on top of searching for the jobs and just kind of go and look for it in the websites regularly. So that's kind of the timeline. And does anyone have any question on this one?
Yes, actually. Is there a penalty for perhaps doing one of these programs when you have completed your advanced degree, or is it best to try and do it simultaneously?
So I don't think there is any penalty. I know for sure, like, Advantage, like, which is I think the Bain program, they mentioned like, early career professionals or current graduate students. So they definitely take early career professionals also, but I think it is just, I don't think there is any penalty, but it is just more common to attend the summer programs during the, the graduate studies, or if you are doing a postdoc during that time. But I don't think there is any penalty. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Kind of moving forward, this is also kind of, one of the, thing I think like some of the best practices, what I found, like, first one is like start the process very early. Like, honestly, like, I think, I seriously started thinking about it 2 years before the graduation. Like, you need kind of 1 year to, get involved with the consulting club, participate in different case competitions, and, case interviews maybe in the last, 3 or 4 months, but just to, get to know other interested people with whom you could actually do the case interviews later. That's why you need to start the process early, because as I mentioned, like most of the firms hire kind of 1 year out before your graduation. So you need 1 year before that to prepare. So that's why, start the process early. And that's, I think, the key advice really you need to keep in mind. And then the second point is like, display the right soft skills. Like, it's also like about, the image you project during, your client meetings and everything. And what I found, like, during, during a presentation in academia or some of the stuffs, as long as like your research is good, you can get away without expressing, this kind of soft skills. But these are really important during the interviews and on the job. Like, you have to be great communicator. You have to display confidence, make eye contact, and also be present whenever, to be engaging during the interview, and also, during the client's meeting, or even when you are reviewing your deck with the partner. That's, I think, I have to be very, be engaged when I'm reviewing the deck with the partner. So, that kind of stuff. So it's, so these are the soft skills which I think people kind of need to master on before appearing for the interviews. Then the third part is like building your business acumen. As I mentioned, like you kind of have to know, okay, what's the break-even point mean? What is profit, revenue, cost? What is like the ROI or the return on investment means? What is the net present value means? Like, during our interview, as I mentioned, if you ask them, they will definitely explain it. But you also have to keep in mind that you have only 30 minutes. So that takes that time away from those 30 minutes and you may not get to the end of the case. So then that doesn't help anyone. So that's why it's just easier to pick a case book online. There are like multiple case books from different consulting clubs you can find online and just go through the first couple of pages. They have like all these different types of terminologies, and it's not rocket science. If it is rocket science, they would hire rocket scientists. So it's not rocket science. So then also kind of get to know some of the industry trends, right? If you are life science specific firms, like you need to know the difference between like, if you're interviewing for life science specific firms, you need to know the difference between, let's say, the small molecule versus biologics, or you need to know the concept that the patent expires after 10 years. Now, these are the kind of the industry specific thought trends or concepts you kind of need to know. Now, I honestly followed the Wall Street journals before appearing for the interviews. It didn't, I mean, I'll be pretty honest, it didn't come up during most of my interviews, but it's just good to know to have the conversations. And the last part is like build your network. What you guys are doing currently, attending this kind of fireside management chat, and you will see that as the spring semester comes, like you will see lots of information seminars and coffee chats. So that's why it's just try to attend this, ask engaging question like what are the projects they have done, what they have learned, what they like about the firm, so they know that you have genuine interest in the firm. And sometimes they kind of just remember the name. So I think that's these are the best practices. With this, I don't have kind of any more slide, but I'll open the floor for any other questions you guys have at this point.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, you can try to raise your hand, or you can leave your questions in the chat. Yeah, okay. So for I guess Sayak, I have a question. So you mentioned the refer from the employee. So do you know? So is that a truth for every company? For MBB, so you can get referral from a current employee and get an interview. Yeah, or it's more for boutique consulting companies. Yeah.
I think it is like it helps in each and every companies, and
Okay.
I know for sure, like in MBB you can get referral. At least I know in McKinsey or BCG you can get referrals. I'm not too sure about Bain, but I know it's there's a process of that. So, but I think it definitely helps. Like if you think about the recruiter's job, like they have like 100 interviews, 100 different, or let's say 200 CVs, right? Yeah. They need some kind of filtering system to filter out the CVs, and out of 100 different CVs, like 50 CVs, everyone has some kind of consulting club involvement, some kind of case competition, some kind of extracurricular. So how how they would actually separate one from another, right? So that's why I think it definitely helps. But for some other firms, I don't think there is a process of submitting a referral, like a formal referral. But you have the opportunity to mention like, okay, you got to know about the firm from this person or so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sayak. So I think I got a question from the chat. Yeah, so a question from Ziwei. Really great talk. So can you share your timeline about your application process or the preparation itself? So it asks about what is your own timeline for the preparation? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I graduated in 2021. So I think 2021 summer. So I did a case competition in 2019 spring. And that was pretty much like my first serious commitment to consulting. Okay, I really want to look into it. And then I did a couple of other case competitions in 2019 fall, and I worked on some pro bono projects during the 2019 fall. And then in the 2020 spring, I didn't do any pro bono projects, but I think I just kind of I applied for the summer programs, and then I interviewed for some other firms during the summer. But in Parthenon, I basically interviewed in 2021 spring, and I think that's because of the pandemic. Everything was delayed by some time. So as I mentioned, like I knew that I was going to graduate in 2021 summer. So I started looking into it seriously from 2019 spring, I would say. And for the case preparation, I started prepping for cases from 2020, I think spring, and it ramped up. The pandemic definitely helped ramping it up because we didn't have to go to the lab from March 15th, I remember. So I don't have anything else to do during that time. So that's kind of my timeline.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I also see another question. So does this kind of program require CPT or OPT? So I guess as international student, so if you want to work for consulting companies and before you get H-1B visa, so you have to apply for OPT CPT, right? Yeah.
So this is something you have to clarify with the recruiter. I don't know, but for the Charles River Associates, I did not need any CPT/OPT because I was not getting paid. So I think if you get paid during the time, you may need a CPT, which I think is the case for the paid advantage program. I think I'm not entirely sure. That's something you need to clarify with the recruiter. But for most of the other forms, you don't need a CPT to attend the summer programs. But you need definitely the OPT when you transition into the full-time roles, which I'm currently in. I'm currently in the OPT. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Sayak. Great talk, by the way. I was just wondering, like, what's the day in life of your current role?
Yeah. So basically, my day would be like I would have one kind of internal team meeting, like for half an hour, and then sometimes I would have like a insight discussion session with the partner and or with the whole team. And apart from the internal team meeting or the insight session, I don't generally have too many team meetings. I would have couple of like calls with the key opinion leaders, or if we are interviewing some people for the clients side, like I would have like maybe 2 or 3 calls per day. So sometimes I would take notes, sometimes I would run the call, it depends. And that's generally happens. And then basically, you know, during the team meeting, we kind of align on, okay, what's the target by the end of the day? So maybe I'm just finishing up 3 calls, you know, building up some part of the Excel model, or writing some part of the, you know, if you have to launch a survey, sometimes you have to write, you know, some of the, you know, survey. So kind of aligning in the team meeting, what are the responsibilities for the day, and working on that. Other than the, you know, team meetings and then the other calls, as I mentioned. And that's typically my day, and it starts, I think, so currently all of my teammates are in Chicago, so my day starts kind of late, like around 10, you know, 9 at that time. And usually it's you're done by around 6 or 7. You can kind of wrap it up. So that's typically my day currently.
See, thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? Okay, so Sayak, I might have a very have a last question for you. So so how would you imagine yourself, I mean, your career pathway in next 5 years? Or yeah, like do you want to stay in consulting, or like transfer to other companies? Or what about, you know, the people that you know? Yeah, what about others? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question, and you know, like, it's very hard to project 5-year timeline, because, you know, like, unexpected turns of events happens, you know, be it your, you know, personal life or professional, whatever, you know, it happens, and it also shapes your decision. So I think I'm enjoying it so far in consulting. So my current idea is to stay in consulting, and at least as long as possible. And but also, you know, like, if there are other opportunities which I find interesting, I may look into. But I think the current plan is to stay in consulting. And in terms of other people, I know that, you know, sometimes people, after 1 or 2 years, people kind of try to go into more corporate growth strategy roles, and it's those roles usually offer more kind of work-life balance as compared to consulting. So that's one part. And some people also want to go into finance jobs, like, you know, private equity, and sometimes, you know, like the venture capital, and those types of roles usually offer more compensation, so and less work-life balance. So you have to uh, make that balance on your own, you know, in your own mind, okay, which path you kind of want to take. um, so that it's there, and currently my plan is to stay in consulting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, is there any other question before we kind of close out?
Yeah, is there any other questions? Okay, if there is no questions, so many thanks to Sayak. That's a very great presentation. Yeah, I think everyone will learn a lot for their, you know, preparations, or at least get some, you know, information and knowledge about consulting. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for providing me, you know, the opportunity. And also, you know, feel free to you know, connect me on LinkedIn or reach out to me, you know, if anyone has any other question.